Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, I want to show you how to get started with relationships. So I'm going to create a blank database and start from scratch. Now you name the database at this stage, so I'm going to call it relationship and then click on create. What you have here is a blank table, which I'm just going to get rid of because I don't want to do it like that. What I suggest you do in Access is you click on create and create your own tables in design. So I want to create three little tables. So what you've got here, look, table design. If I click on that one, it would be back to square one, but I'm going for this design. And you're in the back end of Access where you can set properties, data types, make notes, adjust the default settings and things like that. But I'm going to go for a customer table. So customer ID is going to be my first field. I press my tab key. You have data types, and I want this to be an automatic number, and I also want this to be the primary key. So that means it cannot be duplicated, and every time I add a new customer, it will give me a new number. So then I'm going for customer name, and that's just going to be a text field. And then I'll just go for sector. I'm not going to do a load of fields because I want to go through the relationship. That'll be text as well. So text is defaulting at 255. If you don't think you're going to type that many characters, you can adjust that down the bottom here. So I'll probably say sector is not going to be more than 50. So I'll put that to 50. Same with customer name. Might be a bit longer depending how some of the NHS addresses in the UK are horrendously long, but probably not 255 characters long. So I'll leave it like that, and then I'm going to save this one. And you qualify tables with TBL, and just call it customers, like so. Now I'm going to close that and create another one. So create table design. So now this is going to be courses. So if I go course ID, and then that can be auto number as well. I just typed the letter A and it did that for me. And that also wants to be the primary key. So what I need in this table is the customer field, the what's called the foreign field. So I'm going to put customer ID there. And this one is not going to be the primary key, but it is going to be a number field because the customer ID in this table is auto number, but it's a number field. So that needs to be a number field as well. And then we'll have course, and that'll just be text, and then level, which will also be text. Now I could have a sort of lookup list there. In fact, I will do a little lookup list. So you've got down here, you've got lookup wizard, or you can go down the bottom where you've got lookup there, and then you can just select one of these options. So I'm going for combo box, and then you've got different options in here. So if I want to type a list, I need to select value list from this arrow at the top, value list, and then I can type a list underneath, which is just going to be L1 semicolon L2 semicolon L3, like so. I've got primary key, so I'll save that, and I need to call this TBL courses. Okay, to that, and just close this down. Now, relationship wise, what I want to do is link customers to courses. Now, it's not a natural link. You probably would have another table called sales and have that as a joining table, which I'll just show you first of all where you should create a relationship. So if I go to database tools, you've got this relationship icon. You click on that. This pane comes up on the right hand side, which is basically just duplicating this pane, so I don't need to go over there. I'm just going to drag these on. Now I've got no data in this database at the moment, but I have got the field. So one customer, I'm going to say can have many courses. So you just basically drag it across like that. It's coming up with a one-to-many link, which is great. This tool here, Enforce Referential Integrity, means that if I've got any data in this courses table, in fact, I've done that the wrong way around, actually. Let's just cancel that off. I want to go, it doesn't really matter. I want to go this way. So it's customer ID in there. It's still going to be one-to-many. So just like the look of it there. So customers to customer ID in courses. That's it. So enforced referential integrity, which would mean you cannot create a customer in this table, i.e. a customer number, that does not exist in this table. So it's a good thing to have. And sometimes when you've already got data in tables, you can't tick that. You can still create the join, but you won't have this symbol that's going to appear now. The one-to-many, the one-to-infinity symbol, like so. Now I'm going to get rid of that for a second, because if I do a primary key to a primary key, what you get then is what's called a one-to-one link. One-to-one, I'll just create that. Basically, that means that one customer could only have one course or select one course. Sometimes that's okay. I don't want that though. I want one-to-many, so I'll pull that over to customer ID. One-to-many, enforced referential integrity, create. You get the one-to-infinity symbol, and then you save that. And then this database will now know that is the relationship that you've got. I'll close this window down for a second. I'll save it, just because I moved that. Now, what you can do is when you create queries, if I create a query, create query, query design, this one, if I add those tables, even though there's no data in, so you'll just see, as you add those tables in, it's remembering the relationship. So if you didn't do the relationship, you can do it in here. You can drag and drop. You can do it from here, but it's best, I think, to do it at database level, at the base level where I've just been, rather than each time you come into a query having to do the relationship every single time, which was slightly annoying. So I'm going to close that query down. So basically that's, no, I don't want to save it. That's how you create relationships and where you should create relationships. Now, obviously, that's just two tables. Like I said, you'd probably in this case have a sales table, and then the sales table would be a joining table. So you'd have courses linking into the sales table and customers linking into the sales table, and that would be how this would work. And basically, then you would have like a many-to-many relationship. But the main relationship types are one-to-many, one-to-one, and many-to-many. But I've just shown you the two basic ones there, one-to-many and one-to-one, where it's a primary key to a primary key. So in the next session, I'll expand on this a little bit and start doing some queries with data in and look at what's called join types so you can see how that works. But that's all I want to talk about for now. So hopefully it's been of use. I'll catch you on the next one. Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, I want to talk about how to create lookups from one table to another. So just to recap what I've got in this database, if I go to Database Tools and Relationships, I've just got two simple tables, table of customers and one of courses. So I'll just close that down and save that movement that I just did. So in customers, if I open customers, I've added a few customers, but I've got a column here for sector. Now, these are all in the IT sector, but I could have other sectors in there, and I want to have them available on a lookup list or a drop-down list. So to do that, I need to go into Design and get into the sector field, and then down the bottom, you've got Lookup as an option. I can get rid of these properties, don't need that. So along the bottom, if you click at the end there, you've got a drop-down list. I want the option that says Combo Box. Once I click on that, it gives me an option there. Is the row source a table or query? No, it is not. I haven't got a table. I'm dropping that down and selecting value list because it's just going to be a list. And I'm going to type it IT semicolon, HR, semicolon, training. That is all I'm going to put. If I had more items than that, perhaps I would have a table over here just with one column in with a list of items. But that's all I want for now, so I'll just save that and go and have a look at what that's allowing me to do. So that should give me the 3 items in a drop down. There you go. So I'll say this one's HR, that one is training. You can actually just type the first letter, and that other one is IT, and then this one I'll just type I, and there's IT. So I've added them in there like that. Now from the courses table, I need to be able to see these companies and what sector they're in. So if I go into courses, let's have a look at this one. So I've got customer ID there. I want a lookup there to show me who the customer is. If I select anybody at table level, design view, and customer lookup. So this time I am going to look at a table. So drop the arrow down, combo box tool. That's just how it's displayed, but it is a table, and in there it's going to be the customers table. Table customers, that one. The first column is a customer ID. Column count though, I want it to be 2 columns, so I get the sector as well. And then I don't want column headings. Column widths though, I'm going to select 2 centimeters as the column widths, and then everything else can stay on automatic. I don't need to limit it to the list, but I could. Let's see what that looks like. If I save that, have a look at the table. So I now have got a drop down in there so I can see. So see there, I need to do the whole list needs to be a bit wider than that to 2 centimeters. Can't see that. So go back into design. I'll select the list width as say 5 centimeters, not automatic. So automatic doesn't work properly on this occasion. Go back into it, drop the arrow down, have a look. Now I can see it. So this first course is going to be whatever is in this drop down list, which I haven't created yet. So I'm going back into design. I'm on course, going to look up. This time this is going to be another value list, combo box first. I haven't got a table of courses, so I'm going to have to type this with a semicolon, value list. So I will type it. I'll just do 3 items, Excel, semicolon, access, semicolon, and Word. That'll be the 3 items. Saving that, having a look. So course is going to be Excel level 1. Now I could also just have a drop down list there for the 3 different levels that there are, or I could have it intro, intermediate, advanced, whichever way you want it. But that's all I want to talk about in this little video, how you can create little drop down lists or lookup lists to other tables to pull information through, and that way keeping everything nice and neat. So that's all I want to talk about in this little video. So hopefully it's of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, I want to show you how you can do a basic query and how you can do what's called a parameter query, which is a really cool query to know about in Access. So first of all, just to recap where I am in this database, I have a table of customers, which I've just got a few there, and a table of courses. I've got a few courses there. Now, to create a query, you go to create query, and you've got this group here, queries, and this is the option I'm going for, query design. So when you do that, you basically get the query by example grid down the bottom here, and you've got the option to bring in a table or several tables on here. If I just quickly go to the database tab and remind everybody what the relationships are, one customer can book many courses, that's the relationships. Now when I bring these tables on in the query grid, if I bring them on, the link that you created or we created earlier is there. So it's because you did it at database level, any query, form or report that you create on these tables will automatically pick up this link. So if I double click on customer name and I double click on course, I'll just leave it like that for a second. If I go to the query design tab and click on run that query to have a look at the results, that's going to show me all the customers and then all the courses. But what if I just want to see certain courses? So if I go back into design, I'm going to add the level as well, so I've got that there. If I come under here, I could type Excel, for example, and then it will look just for Excel courses. You get the little quotes around it, that means it's text. Now when I run it again, it's just the Excel courses. Then I would have to save that as QRY Excel or whatever, and then I would have to change the criteria for any access courses, run it again, and then I'll just see the access courses. Now to avoid doing that and having multiple queries down this left-hand navigation pane, you can create what's called a parameter query, which allow you to change the parameter every time you run the query. You could type access once, you could type Excel the next time, you could type Word the next time, and each time it will give you the results of whatever you've typed. So that is what I want to do. So if I go back into design on this one, get rid of what I've got typed down here, access, just delete that off, and the quotes. Now to activate a parameter query, you need to use square brackets. So open square bracket. Then you need to type a prompt for yourself. This does not need to be a single word prompt. You can type a sentence. For example, enter the course. You don't need quotes. You don't need anything. It's just normal text. Close the square brackets. That will trigger a parameter. So if I run this now and type access, it will show me just the access courses. But if I go back into design and run it again and type Excel, it will now only show me the Excel courses. So that's what that does. And I'm going to save this one. I'll save this as QRY. That's a qualifier, QRY para. So I know it's a parameter one. So click OK to that and then close that down. So it sits over here. So the way that would work now is you would basically report on that. So I'll do that, create report based on that. So click on that, create report over here. I'll just go for a blank report, not a blank report, but one that's a wizard if you like. It's asking me to type in the parameter criteria, so Excel, and then it will show me what that report will look like just for Excel though. There you go. Now I'm going to save this report. So when you close this report down, it will ask you, do you want to save it? Yes, I do. And I'm going to put RPT in front of all of that. So RPT would mean it's a report looking at the query para. And okay, I should come into change that as well, but that's a different session. So now, every time I run this query, this report should I say, I can type a different parameter access. Close that down, run it again, Excel, like so. This is all dynamic. Access is a dynamic database. So if I go into customers and add another customer there, first off, so I'll add Bill IT, and they're in the IT sector. So there's another customer. Now if I go and put into courses, I select that Bill IT, and let's say Bill IT did Word, and it was level 3 Word, and then one of the other companies did Word level 3. Just type, because there's drop down list here, I can just type the first letter, but level 3, I want level 3 there, so I'll have to select that. And then now I've got 2 Word courses from 2 different companies. If I close that off, when I run the report, I'm going to type Word. It should show me those 2 companies that did Word courses. There you go, that's where they're at. And that's basically how queries work anyhow generally, but we're using a parameter query. A parameter query is probably one of the best ones to know about because you don't have to create multiple queries for every course in this case. So one for Word, one for Access, one for Excel, etc. is not needed. Just do one parameter query. Now, if you want, if I go into design on this parameter query, you can add additional parameters. So we've got this level. So if I go square bracket, enter level, close square bracket, what's going to happen now is that two parameter boxes are going to come up when I run it. First one's going to ask me for a course. I'll type access, and then it's going to ask me for a level. I'll go level 1. Now, according to that, there isn't any level 1 courses for access. So if I go into courses, access, it's just 1, not level 1. I should have put level 1 there. These should have levels on them. So I'll just change these. I think these were typed in initially before I did the drop down list, which is why that's doing that. So level 2 there as well. Change that. And I'll just see if I can run that query again. So I'll go back into design, run it again. Access. OK to that one. L2. And then it brings that up. So if I just go back into this, run it again. So the word was level 3. So I'll go Word, press and enter, L3, press and enter, and it gives me those two Word courses. So you can have multiple parameters if needed, but the fact that you can just do one simple parameter is okay as well. Now if I just close this stuff down, get rid of that. Do I want to save this? Yes, I do, because I added the level. Now when I run the report, same thing is going to come up. I'll go Word, press and enter. I'll go level 3, press and enter. It should give me those two again in the report. So that's basically all I want to talk about in this little video, how you can create a parameter query and save time by not having loads of other queries listing and blocking up this navigation pane on the left hand side. So hopefully this video is of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, I want to show you how you can create a sales table which will link two other tables together. So at the moment, I've just got two tables in this database, one called customers, which is just listing a few customers, and one called courses. Now, the link at the moment, or the relationship at the moment between these two tables is like this. If I go into database and relationships, so one customer can have many courses. So that would work, and my own database is a bit like that. Don't actually need a sort of bookings table, but I'm going to do a bookings table just to show you how you can set that up. So let's close this down and create a new table. So create table design, I'm going to go for, and the primary key is going to be booking ID, and that'll be an auto number field. So if I just type the letter A, it will do that for me. And I also want that to be the primary key. So that's going to be a unique number. Now, what I do need in this table is the customer ID and the course ID field. So I'll just do those straight away. Customer ID, that's going to be a number field. So I'm just pressing N for number. And course ID is going to be exactly the same. Course ID number. So these are what are called foreign fields when you've got the same name field in a different table. Now I want the booking date, which is going to be a date time field. And on the date time field, I need to use an input mask, which will restrict what type of dates people can add. But before I can do that, I need to save this table. So I'm going to click on the disk at the top there and qualify it with TBL bookings. So I'll call it TBL bookings, like so. Then I can do the input mask. So click on that, short date format, which is going to be like that. That's what I want, so I'll just go finish. I don't need to go next. Next would be if I want to change the underscore there to something else, but I don't. Finish. That's the date of booking. And quantity would be how many people. That's just going to be, it can be a text field. I'll put it to number because I can then do a calculation field. So quantity and then price, which is going to be a currency field. Not too, so that's just going to be currency. So quantity times price. So now I can do the actual booking here. So that would be that times that. This is a calculated field. So I'll call this booking total. And while you're at table design level, you can change all this sort of afterwards. So this wants to be a calculated field. Calculated. Now this opens up the expression builder. Is going to be quantity times price. So what I want here is quantity times price. So it's going to be equals in square brackets QTY close square brackets times price in square brackets, like so. Quantity times price. Okay, and then that gives you the formula down the bottom there. So we've got the date, the price, the quantity of people on the course, and we can have a lookup to do the courses. So where we've got customer ID, I want to look up for the customers table. So same process as before. Combo box. This is going to be a table and query. So what is the table I want to look at? I want to look at customers. That one. I want to look at 2 columns of it. And I need to set the column widths to 2 centimeters and change automatic, where it says automatic there, to possibly 5 centimeters, so you can see the actual lookup. So that's that one. And I need to do it as well for courses. Lookup, click on that line, combo box, and this is going to be the courses table. And this is going to be number of columns on here is going to be 2 as well, and I'll do the same actually. 2 centimeters is usually standard. 2 centimeters and 5 centimeters where it says automatic. Get rid of that. 5. And then let's save that and have a look, see what we've got. So now we've got customer ID. Should be able to drop that down. See the customers. Courses, I can see the courses. Okay, now we've got an issue there. So I need 3 columns. 3 columns. So go back into that. So course should be 3 columns. Save that, have a look. Course, there we go, I can see that. So it's just going to put whatever it is in there. And then the date, there's the input mask for the date, and you've got the quantity and price, and then the calculation field there. So if I close that down and then go back to database tools and relationship, I need to drag on that bookings table. So now this bookings table is going to be a different link to this. Now I'm going to break that link. Yes. Now that's going to affect some of these queries that I did before, but that was just showing you how they worked. I'm not too fussed about that. So now the bookings table is going to be the main table. So I need to do the links into this from customers. So one customer can have many bookings. It's picking up one to many. If I tick that and click create, it's letting me do that. So one customer can have multiple bookings, and then one course can be booked many times. So course ID to course ID, one to many, create. So that's now the new link. Saving that closing this down. So what I should now do is create a form based on this bookings. So to create a form, you click on create form. I'll just use this one and I can edit it later on. So that's just coming up with the bookings table. Now if I close that one down, don't save it. If I click on customers and create a form, let's see what that does. So customers, create a form. So that's giving me the bookings ID per customer. So the bookings table is in there, and in there I have the drop down list for a course. So I can select that and it just gives me course ID 1, and I'm not really seeing what that is. So I don't want that. No. If I click on the bookings table and then create form, it will give me the form, and I will be in what's called layout view, where you can just adjust the whole of these like that en masse, like so. Or you can go view, and then that's what it's going to look like. So at the moment, that's all we've got. If I click on, so we've got customer 1, don't know who that is. We've got course ID, I've got to click there to see that, don't like that either. And then I've got this information. So what I should really do is not save this, don't save that, create myself a query where I can pull all those fields into one place and then generate a form based on that. So let's have a look at doing that. So create query in design, and then you just bring all 3 tables in. It should pick up the links. The link should be there, like so. So what I want is, so I've got, it's picking up that link there as well. I'm going to break that. Don't want that. So if I do core customer ID first from that table, and then customer name, if I just show you that, if I run that, it actually shows you the customer, whatever the customer ID is. Likewise, if I then do course ID from there, and then course from here, so you've got course ID and then customer ID, then course, that one. If I run that again, it will show you that information as well. Course ID, customer ID. And then the rest of it can be brought in from here. So you've got booking date, quantity, price, and booking total, like so. And if I run that, most of that is blank, I haven't filled it in. Now if I save this query, yes, I'll call it QRY bookings. And now if I create a form based on that, so that would be my main input form. Obviously you spend a lot more time making these look nice rather than doing what I'm doing here, just very quickly adjusting things. So there's my form. So at the moment I didn't do any prices for the first couple of things that I did in this database, but I'm going to do that in a minute. I'll save this form. I'll save it as FRM QRY bookings, FRM. Okay, and then I'm going to get into design and change this. So from here, you're going into form design, and you're changing the title just to be, just needs to say bookings really. And you can also change the order of things in here as well, but I'll just save that and then have a look at this. So that's the first course. So if I didn't have a booking ID or booking date, so I'll put today's date in there, which is control semicolon. I'll say there were 2 people, and the price was £200. So that should automatically calculate that as 400, which it does do. So if I now do a new booking, which is a new record, I've got customer ID. I can select a customer, Bob, puts him in there, course that Bob wants. So I'll say access, puts it in there. Date, I'll do today as well. And then let's say there were 6 of them at £200 each, and that'll work that out. So now this is working how I want it to work, my booking ID. Build this form up later on with buttons and things like that that automatically do stuff. If I close this down, go to the bookings table, all that information is now going into this table. It's feeding into this table because we've created the relationships and we've got it all in one place. But the form itself is a little bit tidier than the table. Totally up to you how you do it, but that's basically how you can create a bookings table, link it in with your other tables, and then base a form on a query where you've got all 3 tables in this example in the query, and then you can just manipulate how your form looks. But now you can basically book people in and it feeds into the tables. In this module, I want to continue building the booking database that I've been working on. So just to recap, if I go to database tools and relationships, this is what we've got so far. We've got a bookings table which has got a one-to-many link with customers and courses. Now I want to create a form first of all for customers. So if I click on customers, which I am on, I'm going to create form. I'll just do the default one. So that will pick up what each customer has purchased. So at the moment this is in layout view, but if I click on the form button, that is how this would be. And if I come through the records or the customers, so that customer has 2 courses, and if I keep coming through, none, I went to the end there, should go back, 2, none, 1, 1, 1. So there's some courses that have been bought by different customers, and I can use this form to select a course. So if I select Excel, for example, and then just press tab to come across and do today's date, which is control semicolon, and let's say this person buys 3 sessions at £200, and then I press tab again, that's a calculated field which we did at the table. So this is working for that person, so I can use this as my input reference for bookings. So I'm going to save this table. So if I just close this down, it will ask me, I'll say yes, and I'll call that FRM. So it's a form that is looking at that table, customers. Clicking OK to that, down it goes and it sits over here. If I open it up again, it's ready to go. Now I could obviously edit this and make these a bit smaller, so I can do that in layout view for this little bit. So if I just bring this across, probably to there, so that sits in a box. If I click off that, that's how that would work. But if I go into design of this form, I can actually do that separately. But what I've got to do is break this group of icons, because these are all like a table. This is called a layout. So if I go up to the top here where it says arrange, what you've got to do is remove the layout feature by clicking that. Now these are all independent boxes. If I click off it for a second, I can now adjust these one at a time if I so wish, which I will do because I don't need a big box for that. Customer name, maybe in my database they're only going to be small, so I'm going to make that quite small, as with the sectors as well. But you could adjust them to be whatever size you want. Save the changes, have a look at the form, and then that's how that would look. And if you go through it like that, yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. Close that down. That form's done. So what I want to do now is have a look at some queries so I can pull off some information and create reports on the information. So if I go to the bookings table first off, let's have a look what's going on there. So these are the bookings that have been inputted through a form. So that customers, this is the form that they're inputted through. But if I open this one from before, this is also a form that I could utilize to input the information in. It's totally up to you which you do. And I could also create a new customer from here by just clicking on this little asterisk at the bottom there. All of that is blank, and I can create a new customer, which I will do, so you can see how it works. And I'll just call this It's Easy, E capitals, and sector will be IT. That's a drop down list, and then that's the customer ready to go. Haven't booked anything, so if I come forward, that's a new customer again. I could have clicked the asterisk. If I go back, I'm back onto that one. So I will book a course on for that company. So I'll say they did Excel course. Press tab key, control semicolon for today's date, quantity 2, price 200. Press tab and tab again to come off. Always come off the record so it sits in there, and then you can close this down. And just check, if I come back into the customers table first off, I've got It's Easy at the bottom there, look, been added in. And if I go to the bookings table, that last booking there has been added in. So customer ID, if I click that down, it's telling me there, look, it's Easy, which is correct. So all that is working how I want it to work. But what I want to do now is have a look at a query that's going to total the spend by customer. So let's have a look at doing that one. So create query design. So I need the customers table, customers, just drag that on. You've got it over here as well, but I don't need to do it from there. I can just do it from here. Customers and then bookings. There's a one-to-many link there, so that's okay. So I want customer name, and then I want course from here. In fact, what I'm going to do is, I know that's just going to be an ID number. I'm going to bring courses across as well, so that's the whole database sitting in here, because then I can get the courses. Now, let's have a look at that. I don't want that link there. Let's break that. And then, so I've got customer name, and I want course from here. Not course ID, course. But from here, I want quantity and booking total. I'm not bothered about price. Let's see what happens when I run that one. So I've got the companies, courses, and then the actual total. Now, what it's doing here is it's repeating companies there. Look, Bill IT twice. It's done 2 courses. So what I could do is go back into here and select this symbol, which is going to let me group by. So it's got group by customers and group by courses, and then quantity group by. So quantity, I want that to sum the quantity, could be a count of the quantity, and then definitely sum the total. Let's have a look at that. So now we've still got the 2 courses, 2 companies should I say. So what I need to do is maybe count courses. So I can't have group by twice, so I'll just count it. Count. Run it again. Now it's doing it. So I can't have 2 group bys. You've got to just group by 1 column. So grouping by company, they're all the separate companies, how many courses they've had, and students, this will be students, and then the total sum of it, like that. Now these labels, you can change these labels just to be, makes more sense than count of courses. If I go back into design and get myself in front of there, in front of this C, and just put course attended, no spaces, colon. So that's changed it. And then in front of that one, I'll just call students, colon. That's renaming that. And then this last one, just put total, colon, and then run that. Let's have a look at that. So now we've got courses attended, So each one of these companies have attended 21111, number of total students, and then the actual price per company. So I'm okay with that. So I will save that one. Save QRY company analysis or something like that. Now what you have to record is totally up to you as a business. So that's something I would want to know about. Later on in a different video, I'll show you how to create an invoice generated from the bookings table and things like that. But different queries you need to run to get the information that you want for your database. Now, if I close that down, so I'll come across here. This one, I want to run a report on that. So create report. I'll just go for the default one and see what it looks like. That's okay. I'll go to close that and it will ask me if I want to save it. I'll say yes. And then I'll put RPT in front of all of that. So it's a report that's looking at that query. Like so. Click OK. Now, there it is. If I right click on it and go into design from here, I can change the title here, get rid of that. I don't need QRY there, and I can space that out as a normal sentence. And everything else I can leave the same. Just save that change, have a look at it. There we go. Oh, that's a bit truncated. It's got the summary on there, so I need to go back into that and sort that out. So it's down the bottom here. This box needs to be a bit deeper. So click. Let's have a look at that. And it also needs to be formatted to currency. Format it to currency, go back into it, click on it, go into properties and format, and then from there type in C and it's giving you currency. Close that off. Run that again. I'll have a look at it again. So now £5,525 is the total income of these courses. Where it's got course attended, and this you can space those out as well. So if I go back into design and just these are just labels, so I can get up there, space that out, and that one. Students, totals, everything else is okay. These are the fields, you don't touch those. Yeah, so everything is okay. Save the changes, and that is that report done. So just to recap, we created a form that will allow us to input new bookings and new customers. We've created a query that allows us to analyze what each company is spending, and then we've generated a report based on that query. So that's all I want to talk about in this little video. So hopefully this is of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one. In this module, I want to continue building this booking database. Just to recap where we are at the moment, if I go to database tools and click on relationships, we have 3 tables: a customer table with a one-to-many link into bookings, and a courses table with a one-to-many link into bookings as well. So that's how the database is sitting. What we've got down the left-hand side is the objects that we've done so far. So we've got a few queries, a bookings query, for example, which if I go into design on that, it's basically got those 3 tables in there, and I've pulled the information across for that. And we've got a form for customers with the bookings table embedded at the bottom there. But what I want to do in this little video is look at invoices, how to create an invoice based on these bookings. So at the moment, all that's happening is if somebody books for this customer, there's the information, great. Booking ID is the primary key for that table. But what it's not giving me is an option to send an invoice to this customer. And it's also not giving me an option to enter a purchase order somewhere. Now I want to go and do that on the bookings table and then see how that transforms through to these forms and reports that I might have already created. So this is a situation sometimes happens when you're developing a database where you've forgot to add a particular field, hopefully before you get to the end of the database and you've started using it for a while. So this data we've got at the moment is just testing data, so that should be okay. If I go into the bookings table though, right click and then design, I want to add a invoice number field. So invoice, I'm not going to have this as a an auto number. I'll just have it as a number, or you can have it as short text, but I'll just have it as a number, so it's just going to be a number. And then PO, purchase order, will have to be short text because some companies send you purchase orders and they're alphanumeric, so you can't just have it as a numbered field. So I've added those there. If I save these, have a look, obviously that's going to be a blank column. So what we've got to do here now is sort of work out which company is the same, or it's the same booking. So you've got customer ID 1, 2, 3, 5, 5. So there's 2 there, look, and there's 1 again there. So even though these are different dates, I'm going to give them purchase order, an invoice number, should I say. I'll just go 101 for that one. So there's an invoice number, and that was customer 1. Customer 1's down here as well. I'll go 101 as well. You see why you need to not type loads of data in without thinking this through, because obviously you're going to get so customer 2, you could end up typing quite a lot of these out. 102, and customer 3, 103, separate invoices. Customer 5, 104, and then another 104 underneath. So that's like the same invoice but with 2 jobs on it. And then customer 6, 106. That'll do. And then not every customer gives a purchase order. And like I said, there could be alphanumeric. So I'll go A123 for that one. And then the purchase order for this one, customer 2, can be BZ5, something like that. Customer number 3 is going to be AS121. And then customer number 5, we've got 2 going to be the same here. So we'll go NH23 and then NH23 again, like that. So they've both got the same purchase order. One is Alpha 123, so that's the same as that one, say, for example. And then this 6 one can be whatever, M111. So I filled in those fields. So let's see what that has now done to the rest of this database, because these are new columns and we need to have a look to see if they've pulled through. So in the query bookings, that column is not through there. Do I need that column through there? Probably not, unless I'm using this as an input mechanism. So if I look at that form, query bookings, so if I'm using this to input information, I would need to add those extra columns. But let's have a look where I am going to use it. If I go into this form, so now I'm coming to this form, and you can see that both those columns have come through automatically. Now that didn't used to happen in older versions of Microsoft Access, but now that has happened, which is really good. What I'm going to do is go into design on bookings and add those 2 fields. So I've got let's get rid of some of this stuff. Move that up a bit. So if I go for invoice number and purchase order number, just to come in there, just run that query to make sure that picks them up. Yes, it does. Save that query. So now what I can do is do another copy of this query. So I'm going to close that one down because that's okay. I'm going to right click on it and copy it. And what I'll do there is just paste it straight away back in there, but call it not copy. I'll call it invoice, QRY booking invoice. Like that. And then on that one, if I go into design on it, I can get myself underneath the invoice number over here, invoice number, and do a parameter query. So I'm going to do a square bracket and type enter invoice number, closing the parameter query with a square bracket. So when I run that, I can type 101 and it gives me that information, 101. That's the invoice. So now I need that to be in a report. So I'll close this down. Yes, I do want to save it. So what I do now is I base a report on that. So I'll go create report and I'll do 101 again, 101, and it will create a default report which doesn't look great. So there's of course, there's the total amount, purchase order. These boxes need to be made smaller. To be honest, a little session I might come back and redo this completely and have it as a just coming down the page instead of going all the way across like this, because I don't like it. But for now, if I close that down, I need to change that as well. If I close that down, I will save that. I'll call it RPT invoice. RPT QRY bookings invoice. Okay. If I go back into that, it's going to ask me for a different invoice number. Not that one. That one. So I'll go 102. I don't know what that one is. It's just that one. There you go. And every time you run that, it's going to run the parameter query and you'll get your invoice coming up there. So that's all I want to do in this little video, how you can add an invoice number in a purchase order column and then use a parameter query to generate an invoice per customer as required. So hopefully that little video is of use. Thank you for your time and I'll catch you on the next one. In this module, I want to continue building this booking database. On the last session, we created a query for invoices. If I just open that up, and it was a parameter query where you had to type the invoice number in before it would display the information. We then based a query, we based a report on that. So I'm running the report, and I said on the last session that we need to tidy this up. So I'm going to recreate a report, but I'm going to do it manually from scratch. So if I just close this down and get myself a blank report or report design option. So report design, what you've got there is basically a blank piece of paper, and you have to sort of tell Access where the record is coming from. So that is the query invoices, that one. And then if I go up to the field list, you'll get the fields coming in like so. So what I'm going to do now is create some grouping down the bottom of here, add a group. You can pick what you want to group by. So you've got all your fields here. So invoice number would be the logical one. So I'll pick invoice number. So you have the invoice number there, and then I'm going to drag that on there. So there's the invoice number, like so. Just push it up to the top, make a bit of space behind it like that. Nice little gap. You can actually go and format this, or you can format it at the end, just make it stand out a little bit. Whatever color you want, really. Invoice number, and then do the same for that one. Title. And if you want to have a look at it, you just go into this view tab. It is going to do that every time because it is based on a parameter query. So that's what that is going to look like at the moment, which is not great, but right, there we go. We can get rid of those boxes afterwards. So now you're putting the details in. So I want customer ID or customer name. Let's go for customer name. Bring that over here, and you've got a customer name, and you just push that up there as well. If anything's concatenated, you can, if anything's squashed or truncated, you can just tidy it up a little bit. So customer name, and then you've got course. So I'll put course down underneath like that. If you want these closer together, you can just pick up these rectangles, or these squares should I say, and you can just move these together like so, as long as they don't overlap. And then you've got the booking date, so I'm going to put a booking date underneath that. And then I'm just going to put total price on there. You've got price and then booking total. So I'll just put booking total on there for now. Let's see what this looks like. If I have a look at that, 101, you can see how this is sitting, and there's the other record there. That's because there's quite a lot of space and I need to get rid of that space, so I'll just come back into this. That space will be this space here, so if you push that up, you'll get rid of that space. So the only other thing I've got on there is the quantity and price. I don't really need to have those on there. PO number, I could perhaps put that on there. So we've got invoice number, and maybe I'll put the purchase order number up there as well, and then just you can marry those two up. So let's have a look at that one. 101 again. So I've got the purchase order, and now you can see it's all a bit tight. Now these boxes need aligning, and the totals at the bottom, we haven't got them on there. So if we go back into design, I can add those on. I don't need the field list there now. Get some space. So they need to go down in the footer area. So we've got, at the moment, we've just got the invoice number. Down the bottom here, you can add extra things. So if I go onto this more option, you've got footer with totals. So if I go with totals, customer ID, well, that wants to be not customer ID, that wants to be booking total. Sum, show grand total. Yeah. So let's see where that's put that. Right down the bottom in the report footer, which is okay. I'll just move that over here a bit and just get rid of the page space and have another look. So I'll go back up there. 101. So now you've got so there's the report footer. It's not formatted to pounds, so I need to go back into that and just format that to pounds. Come down to it, just move it back over here a bit. So you need your properties on now, and in properties you can set that to currency. If you go to format and then just type C in this box, it will default to currency, and then if you have a look, it should be in pounds, and it is in pounds. So you can align all this to the left, to the right, centered, whichever way you want, but you're basically creating your own invoice. And at the top you can put some address details, you can do a text box and anything you want, your logos, your branding up here. AB is a box that you would use to do formulas with. AA is the text box option. I'll just call it my invoice. Like so, and then you click off that, and if you want to make that bigger, you just go to format and change the size of that and the alignment of it as well. My invoice. Don't need anything there. If you want to push that up, you can, just save in space, and then you've got all of this. If I go and have another look at that, last look, 101. So my invoice, probably a bit tight there, and you can see how that's going to work. This is layout view, not layout view, this is just view, not print preview. Print preview looks like this. So obviously we've got a bit of space to pull over there, make it look a lot nicer. But that's all I want to talk about in this little session, how you can start to create your own reports rather than using the wizard. But it's totally up to you which way you want to do it. But hopefully this video is of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one. Just to recap this database that we're building, if I go to database tools at the top there and relationships, you can see what we've got here. We've got a bookings table, we've got customers, and we've got courses. I'll just close that. What we last did was we looked at a form which would give us a list of customers and the bookings that they had. And now on that form, we had invoice numbers. What I want to do now is have an invoice number up the top here that's going to tell me what the next invoice number should be, because I can't just go on here and look at the invoice numbers and say 101, it must be 102, because if I go into the table, you can see that there's already numbers there, and 102 is not even in that list, or it's there at the top. So I can see the list of invoice numbers, but I haven't got what the next one is. I can see it's 107 there, but I don't want to keep coming back into here to see that. So what I'm going to do is create a query and then put the result of that query in here and do a form on it and just have it there. Now you can do a function dlookup, but we haven't got to that stage yet, but we can change this later on. But for now, if this is the level you're at, where we're at here, you can do this. So if we click on create query, query design, and straight away I'm going into the expression builder because I want to use a function which is the max function. So get the tables opened up. There's a booking table. So if I just double click on the invoice number, it gives me the reference there. Look at the top, and you see how that syntax sits. You've got to have it like that in square brackets, but I want to put in front of that equals max, so it's the maximum with a normal open bracket, and then close the bracket at the end, and then +1, so that'll just be 1. So 106 is the highest number at the minute, so that should come back with 107. Click OK. Before I run this query, I'm going to need to add the customer table, otherwise it won't work. I need to save that. So if I run this, it should now be 107, which it is. So now what I need to do is just create a form so I can put that in here. So if I go into design, what you can do is a lookup to that, but if you create a form, I can embed a form. So if I just click on that, create a form. So I just want a default form. I can tidy this up later. So that's all that's going to be. If I go into design on this, I can make this a lot smaller than that. I'll take off the automatic layout features, so I can then bring this right in, because I don't really need anything other than the actual number. I don't even need that title across the top there at all. And then I can bring this right across, like so. And then I'll just close that and save the form. Yes, FRM in front of that QRY, if I can get the cursor there, FRM form that's looking at that. OK. Now I want to put that up here. So up there. So now I need to embed the form here. So I just click into there and go to form design, and you want to select subform subreport. You draw a little rectangle. You can resize this later on, and then follow the wizard. So there's the query. So that's the one I want there, and then I can just go finish, and let's see if that's picked that up. It's got 107, which is great. Now what I need to do is get rid of some of these labels. So I'll go back into design on this and just tidy this form up a little bit. So I don't need that label at the top. And I can make this a lot smaller than what it is. Let's move it over there a little bit. Bring it across like so. Just save that for a minute and then just have a look at that, see what that looks like. You can actually get rid of the titles and the bars and everything else, but I just want to see if this works first. So if I get a new booking, so course ID, let's say it's going to be access and it's going to be today, and you've got 4 people at £200 each, not 2,000, 200, and then the invoice number would be, according to that, 107. So get rid of the 0, 107, pressing off there. Now that hasn't naturally updated, but if I close this down and just save it and then go back into it, so this hasn't updated either, so I'll close that one down. So if I open the table, not that one, bookings, invoice number 107 is there. I did do a purchase order, so I'll just do AZA as a purchase order, close that down, and then I don't need that open. Go back to the form, and that now says 108. So I could have just refreshed the form. So that is working okay actually. So that's fine. So I've got, so it's showing me the next number. I could put that up there actually as a title, next number to be used. But if I go forward on these customers, it's still going to say 108 because it's looking at that table. So that's okay. So that's all I want to talk about in this little video, how you can create a form that will look at the next invoice number and always be available on every form for every customer. So hopefully this little video is of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one.